Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm starting on a brand new project. I have a 1949 Mercury M-68. Now for those of you who might be Ford truck aficionados, you might not have even ever heard of an M-68. Don't feel bad about that. The M-68 was a brainchild of Ford of Canada. It is nothing more than a rebadged Ford F-68 or F3, so a 3/4 ton heavy duty that was marketed for Canada exclusively. So they're not too common, but you do run into them once in a while up here in Canada. So this truck here is actually a customer's vehicle, and my customer gave me the lowdown on this truck. It was originally used as a delivery vehicle for some sort of a moving company. So it had a custom-built flatbed in the back. And when the company decided to upgrade, they took the flatbed and installed it on the new truck and sold this truck as a chassis cab. Okay? So the previous owner bought it as is and then tried to find a pickup bed to put on it. Now the problem is he did find a proper era pickup bed, but this is from an M1. So the M1 is the half-ton version of this truck, and as you can see, the wheelbase is not the same. Actually, let me just pause a second and move the camera so you can see. So as you can see, there's a little too much space in here. And if you notice down there, the wheel is not centered in the wheel well opening, right? So my customer's plan right now was to not really go the full-on rat rod route, but more of a running barn find, if you will. He wants to keep the patina, keep the truck looking old and beat up, but he wants to look at it to look more like a running normal vehicle. So when he first talked to me, his plan was to cut the box and lengthen the box to fit the truck. And that was his plan before I even saw the truck. When I went to see the truck, knowing that he wants to keep the era correct patina, even though this is not the right box for the truck and they're two different colors, I'm sure you agree that the patina on both of those parts looks like it fits together, right? This thing looks like it's been sitting in the field for 60 years. So what I suggested instead is to modify the frame, shorten the wheelbase back to what a half-ton would be, and make the box fit to make it look like a half-ton. That way, all of my modifications will be underneath it, and the only way you can tell is by getting down on your hand and knees and looking up at the frame, right? There's plenty of guys that will stretch a box and try to blend in the patina. Some guys are really good at it. Most guys, I'm sure you'll agree, it kind of shows, right? It doesn't look quite right. So being as this had the proper patina, I wanted to make sure and preserve it as much as possible. And to me, modifying the frame makes it a whole lot easier to keep it looking old without sacrificing anything. So we're going to attempt that right now. So the first thing we're going to do is make marks on the floor and verify that the wheelbase on this is supposed to be 122 inches, right? Whereas the frame from a half-ton should be 114. So it should be about 8 inches too long. Now, mind you, I am going to keep those 8 inches in mind.
That's what she said.
But that will not be an end-all, be-all to this build, right? There's plenty of examples out there where the factory wheelbase isn't quite right, right? The vehicle doesn't sit well, the wheels don't look perfectly centered. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the bed slightly backward until the wheel looks perfectly centered in the opening. I'm going to make some reference mark off the front of the box and the back of the cab, take some measurements. Then we're going to remove the back wheels so we can slide the box forward so it looks the way it should up here, and take our measurements again and verify that our measurements do actually come up to 8 inches. It might look better with 7.5, it might look better with 8 1/8, whatever it is. We will make sure that we make this truck look as good as possible. So let me put you guys on time lapse and let's start taking some measurements. Now I'm sure some of you guys have noticed I made my measurements to the front of the rim rather than the center of the axle. It's just a little bit easier to find it that way than trying to find the center of a circle just by eyeballing it. With my measurement right now, I'm looking at a hair over 121 and a quarter. So we'll take it that this is the 122 inches that are known as the factory spec. And I will add a still image here of the 3/4 ton heavy duty leaf springs. They have a helper spring on top of it. So if your truck has a 122 inch wheelbase and does not have the helper springs, you probably have an F2. If I remember correctly, that would be an F54. Guys that know more about Ford trucks than I do, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So now that we have a measurement for our wheelbase, we're going to slide our box back and make this wheel look centered in this wheel opening. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera. I need to lift the front of the box more a little bit because if you look at this angle here, it's tilted slightly forward. So if I take my measurements up here, it'll change when I put the box level. So I'm going to raise the front a little bit more to be parallel to the backs of the cab. Okay, I fiddled a little bit with it off camera, but this is a lot better. Let me bring you guys in closer so I can show you what I mean. So now we are looking at 91.5 degrees versus 88.7, 89.4, 88.9, so we are in the ballpark.
It's an art, not a science.
However, if we look here, I'm still a little too far here compared to over here, so I'll have to shift the box a little more backwards. The other side looks pretty good. Just a smidge. And that's looking pretty good. That's looking nice and centered to me. So now I'm going to place some tape over the top of the box, over the back of the cab, and we're going to take measurement between the two, see what our distance is. And then after that, we can take the wheels off, slide the box forward until it's fitting nice with the cab, take our measurements again from the same spots, see how much we actually moved the box, and then we'll know exactly how much to shorten our frame. Okay, so this looks a lot better now. There's a few things you guys might have noticed in the time lapse. Let me bring you guys in closer for a look. Okay, the first item, and probably the most obvious, I'm pretty sure those aren't stock to a 1949 Mercury. And if you guys noticed me lifting the box to move it forward, apparently somebody has already bobbed the frame on this M-68, which is going to be a little bit of a problem because on this box, the rearmost mount is an L bracket behind here that's supposed to rest on top of the rear cross member. So I'm going to have to find the proper size C channel and rebuild a rear cross member on this frame. So based on my measurements, remember like a stock M68 had a 122-inch wheelbase, a stock M47 or a half-ton had a 114-inch wheelbase, which means we should have had to shrunk the wheelbase by 8 inches. But based on my measurements, 7 inches would be better. Now there could be a few reasons for that. First off, let me start by putting a still image of a stock F-68. Now you guys will notice in that picture that the stock F-58 has a completely different box. There's a lot more real estate back here between the back of the fender and the back of the box, which means that this fender may not be in the same exact position on the original F-68 box that it was before, because this M68, if you look at the picture of the F-68 again, when an F-68 is meant to have a pickup truck box, you can tell that the running boards go full length, whereas this M68 has the short running boards because it was originally sold as a chassis cab to begin with. So we're going to have to deal with that as well. But right now, based on my measurements, I will be shortening the frame 7 inches. So now that we know for a fact, let's completely remove this box of the frame and we can figure out where we're going to start cutting.
Much later.
So the box is finally off. For those of you who just watched me struggle with this thing for a while, know to self, I need to get me a gantry crane or a hoist in the near future. Because taking it off this way was a real pain.
X.
We run a family-friendly channel here, come on. So, I think I'm going to call it a video for now. Come back next time for part 2, when we start figuring out